So the 2025 guidelines, on one hand, summarizes the current evidence which we have to guide clinicians and also laypersons how to save lives. On the one hand, we have a lot of evidence elaborated by ILCO, the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation, which the ERC uses as the backbone for their recommendations. So in one way, it's an update of guidelines we produced before. On the other hand, in all these 11 guidelines, from epidemiology to basic life support, advanced life support for adults, then pediatric life support, neonatal, till ethics, education, and first aid, a lot of new stuff came in, which is not a big surprise because development of several years between these guidelines brings new insights. From my point of view, from overseeing all the different guidelines, really new is the first aid chapter, I have to say, because this time we said, let's put in first aid from the point of view of resuscitation. So what measures in first aid can either prevent or help to support survival in the first aid community or in the first aid courses, or when you are a layperson helping people. So the focus changed totally. So we are looking at first aid from the point of view of resuscitation. In general, first aid is looking at helping people for a diverse stuff which happens. So you might not find a comment on what first aid measure you have to do if you lose a teeth. But you find something, even in Europe, if a snake bites you, because even in Europe we have one type of snake which can produce the cardiac arrest, only to make the difference. The other chapter which is really rewritten is ethics, with lots of new focuses on patient involvement, the wishes of the patient, advanced care planning, termination of rules, the new insight we have. All this stuff is very nicely focused. Also, they are talking about research and teaching of ethics in resuscitation. All the other chapters are essentially looking at new scientific stuff, how to integrate this into their procedures. What I'm really proud for the ERC, for the first time, we have a BLS algorithm which is made for pediatrics, adults, in hospital, out of hospital, trained and untrained people. So one scheme for everybody, which is really helpful, and what we try to do it, simplify it, make it easy to understand and easy to apply. To stay informed, for the clinicians, for the people who are really into resuscitation, I would say go into the guidelines, read over also what we did over the last several issues of these guidelines. We have a first part, the concise guidelines for the clinician. Very short bullet points forms, instruction what to do with algorithms and figures. And then there's a second part, which is the evidence-informed guidelines, which explains in very details why we issued this recommendation, which were described before. So if you're really interested, go into this, read it to understand why we should, as clinician or even as a lay person who is trained, do this. What we did for the first time, and I think this is a really important step for the ERC, we provide now a lot of material for implementation and for getting informed in the future. So we produced for the communities, for lay people, leaflets, cards where the procedures are explained, for example, first aid, basic life support, of what to do, why epidemiology is important, what is epidemiology at all, or why should you get trained in CPR. For the clinician, we produced pocket cards with the major algorithm, the major procedures you can have in your pocket if you need it. Because it's very clear, even in a hospital, even in an EMS system, resuscitation is for a lot of people not an everyday action. So we provide the material. If this happens, rarely you have it by hand, you can take it out and start to do the correct procedures. For lay people, so for everybody in the community, we produced a small booklet in lay terms explaining why we did these new guidelines and what does it mean. So the different guidelines are described in very short words, for understandable for everybody, about a couple of pages. And this was really made to inform everybody what this is about, decision makers, hospital administration, politicians, EMS directors, but everybody else, what can you do to save more lives on different levels. And the last point is, for staying informed, we made a new app, which is the Guidelines app. So you can read all the stuff on your phone, on the tablet, and even the app links you then to the new ERC webpage, where you have all, and you can download this. The full guidelines, neonatal life support, pediatric, education, whatever you want. Figures for teaching, it's free for educational purpose, you can use everything. If you want to make money, you have to pay a little bit, it's obvious. And this is all to help you to get the message across. Because you stay informed if something new comes up. Suddenly a new study really which brings up that's something new, we will issue an update of the guidelines. We will adapt, if needed, an algorithm or whatever advice. So this is, therefore the ERC has its Science and Education Committee, it's called. So for every stuff, for basic life support, neonatal, pediatric education, there's a committee composed from scientists and educationalists to work on this, to work on the educational part, to work on the dissemination, and if new science come up, new evidence come up, they have to value this, and then we issue an update. Otherwise, next stuff in 5 years.